Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for True show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for True show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, and it's a pleasure to invite you back with us again tonight. Many of you have been asking how you avail yourselves of the show. Very simple, go on YouTube, click on A Time for True show, and just click on the subscribe button, and you will become one of our members. We'd love to have you. And tonight we're going to discuss something important, because in today's world we have so much chaos, violence, confusion, homelessness, social dismay, upset, prejudice, and we're looking for answers. And it seems like we try to maybe regulate things out of existence rather than looking at, as a doctor, which I am, the cause, or what we call in medicine the etiology, the roots of where things are coming from. And today's show is very important because it'll bring out more of what we can do with art, creativeness, and really the spiritual side of man, which will go, my philosophy, to tremendous lengths to solving these problems and conundrums and riddles that we're trying to solve by mechanical means. So Buddha, if you will, let's put up the pictures of our guests all the way from the Detroit area, Mr. Steve Gill, originally from San Francisco Bay Area, who is an acclaimed artist of musician and sculptor parentage. His entire family was and is involved in the arts in some form or another, whether it be music, drawing, painting, acting, anything. Steve has delivered thousands of the best art shows in the country, from California to Florida for 46 years, and you see his artwork there, quite humorous, very colorful, and very light, something that we need in today's world. He draws and paints unique images, and he does this, very interestingly enough, in collaboration with youth at his shows. He involves the youth in the actual creative interaction and has produced multitudinous charity, school, and private functions around America. Mr. Gill is also a spiritually dedicated person with a purpose of community and social betterment, and has been a lifelong philanthropist for humanity and for his country. And Buddha, if you can, let's bring him up on the screen. A bit of warm welcome to Steve Gill. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and You know, I looked at your art, and just looking at it makes me happy, laugh. I love those kids' pictures, you know. So I wanted to ask you right away, when you were a young man, what were your goals with humorous drawing?
Well, mainly I drew them to entertain the other kids in the classroom. I was very young when I started drawing, and when I realized I could draw, it seemed like I went immediately over to doing humorous things, which didn't always please the teachers, but it certainly entertained the kids.
You know, you brought me back to earlier times when I was in junior high school. You gave me a vivid image of that. So I guess you must have really gotten in trouble quite a bit with the teachers at times, huh?
I did, actually. I got sent to the principal's office quite a bit. It was well, it was a good thing to get sent for, because I did make everybody laugh. It didn't always make me laugh, but it was okay. It was worth it.
Very interesting. And so I'm curious, when you ended up at the principal's office and he saw that you were drawing, I don't know if you remember, what did he say to you?
Well, that I shouldn't be doing it while I was studying, you know, but I always had the ability to listen, so, which was a good thing, because I remember one time I was in class and one of the teachers was talking about something, and they saw that I was drawing, so they said, "So what did I just say, Steve?" You know, and I told him, and he was like, oh, okay." So that kind of made it okay for me to draw while he was talking. You know?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think one of the traits of a genius is the ability that you just talked about, and to really have great concentration, but also at the same time be able to view or hear many things at the same time. And you know, so congratulations to you for for having that ability, you know. So here you are doing this when you're young. What then inspired you to go on, and now you start getting into acrylic painting?
Well, I drew in pencil at first, and then I started doing black and white and pencil. And then I met a friend, his name was Guy Peterson, who was a young man who was an artist like myself. We were both learning how to paint, and so we sort of inspired each other during that time to continue painting and get better at it.
Interesting. And so now, did you find it difficult when you were doing all this drawing, or did you just pick it right up with the acrylic painting?
Well, I never found it to be particularly difficult. It was just a transition into another medium. It's always been good. I've worked with the exception of my dad was a metal sculptor, and he would work with copper and brass, and I tried. I actually wasn't good at that. I would like work on something, get down, and then I'd kind of forget that I just had that under the fire, and I'd pick it up, you know, to work with it. And that wasn't good, you know. So I found that medium was not one I wanted to work with.
I can imagine there could be some, you know, surprises picking up some hot piece of metal, right?
Right.
Yeah, and you know, I know at times when I get very occupied, you don't really have your attention all there, and you go to do something, and wow, that could definitely be a surprise for you.
Exactly.
I would think so. That's very interesting, because your whole family is very artistic. You know, I was seeing your bio, and what kind of impact did that have on you?
Well, It wasn't like having parents that had this idea that you had to stick to one particular thing. You know, like you should be, well, a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, you know. They were open to me being something that, you know, had more to do with my abilities. So they kind of let me go in that direction.
Well, it's a lot of freedom, and
Yeah.
I guess as an artist, you need that freedom, right?
Yeah, it's important, definitely, because well, as an artist myself, I have an urge to create things, and it's almost like breathing for me. You know, I have to do the creative process quite often, actually, or I just don't feel right about it. I do a lot of drawing and a lot of painting.
Very nice. Well, you know what? Tell us about, because I was reading a little bit about this, and if you could describe it for our viewers, because unfortunately I know you say you had no pictures of it, but you had something that you called a Wonder Bread. I remember Wonder Bread when I was a young guy. A Wonder Bread delivery truck art van that you used as a traveling artist. I mean, that sounds wild. Describe that to our viewers.
Well, when I bought it, it was actually amazingly different. I'm not sure how many people would actually buy something like that, but it was a regular, like, sort of like a large UPS truck or FedEx truck, and then it had additions built onto it that were all square steel tubing added onto the outside of it. It had a box up there. It had plexiglass windows around the bed in the front, so when you sat up in bed, you could look out all four sides and see outside. And then as you go inside the bed and into the actual main living area, it was completely funky. It was the 70s, and the floors. There was a mirror on the ceiling with white lattice work. Okay. There was stained glass windows that separated, these big, beautiful stained glass windows that separated the front from the back. And then there was also a back porch in the back that had a white picket fence around it with fake grass, you know. I mean, this thing was wild. And that's when I bought it. And then after I had it, I started doing my own create on it, and I added like a wind, this thing to get the wind to go over the top of the vehicle so it wasn't quite so boxy, you know. And then I ended up putting a sculpture on top of that I did myself of a Cheshire side. I had a flying dragon. I had propellers that we made out of bicycle wheels in the front that spun when it went down the road. They were out of this world.
Wow. What kind of comments did you get as you were driving through towns and cities? What did people say to you?
Well, they would definitely look and, you know, like be leaning out their cars and taking pictures of it. And when it was parked at shows, a lot of people came up and would go. It was, you know, it was, I got a lot of admiration for it and some very strange looks.
And in that truck, did you actually also like utilize it to do this interaction with the painting and creating with the kids, or that was just like a different time?
No, that was a different time period. I actually didn't do that then. But, and also when I went to a show, I set up a display with my artwork at the art show. So even now, when I go to a show, it's my booth is set up with panels and, you know, places to put my artwork where people can thumb through it. And then when the kids come up, I just say to them, you know, they're looking around kind of like, whoa. And I say, would you like to see me draw one? You know? And then they go, yeah, you know. And then I say, well, I do this a little differently. I could draw the same thing over and over, and I'm good at it. But what I do to challenge myself and to give you a little better experience is to let you tell me what to draw. And I said, I can draw anything, any way. And they're kind of like, wow, And it's hard for them sometimes to come up with something to draw, so then I ask them other questions to kind of get them to look and get ideas of what they want to do. Like I'll say, well, do you like animals? Do you have a favorite animal? Is there anything you do? Do you do sports? Do you play an instrument? Just start asking them questions, and then they'll go, oh yeah, I play sports. And they go, so I'll say, well, what? Well, I play soccer. I go, well, do you want me to have someone doing soccer? Or would you like an animal doing soccer? Or if they play the piano, I'll, just whatever. It can be anything, any way. And it's a little bit challenging for them because, they get to decide, and it's kind of hard to do. But I help them too as I go through the drawing. Like I'll say, well, do you want it to be happy? Do you, what do you want it doing? It can be doing anything. So it's fun. It's really fun.
Very, very, very spontaneous. Now, because now you're doing this and you've been doing it for so long and you're accomplished at it. But tell us about your first art show in Lake Tahoe and what happened there.
Okay, that was my first art show, and I really wasn't settled into what I was going to do at art shows at that point. So I had some surrealistic paintings I had painted and some abstract stuff, and I had some humorous drawings, and that was about it for the first show. And I put my work up. They had walls there you could put your work up on. And people came by and they looked at it, but I was so shy that I hardly could talk to people. And then when people were interested in my work, I got even shyer. So I was like, I wasn't a great salesperson at that time. I just couldn't communicate with people. And my very first show, I sold nothing.
Wow.
I didn't sell a thing. And it was 4 days. And then after the show was over, I asked the promoter if I could set up in front of the show because it was a major highway going around the lake in Lake Tahoe. And so a lot of people drove by there, tourists in the summer. And so they let myself and a couple other artists that also didn't have a good first show. A few of us set up there, and then people just kind of came by and pulled in, and I ended up selling a few things after the show, day or two after. So that was the beginning of my professional art career.
Well, congratulations for sticking to it. Because a lot of people, if they have a bad experience and they don't do well, that's the end of it. They just give up and go into a big loss. So that's amazing that you were able to turn it around, and from there it started just to expand for you.
Yeah, I did. Well, I started paying attention to what people wanted. As an artist, in art schools and stuff like that, kind of teach people these days that you do artwork for yourself, or at least in those days, and I'm pretty sure that's still going on, that you're painting for yourself. It has nothing to do with communicating to anybody else, And the fact is that people buy artwork to put on their walls to communicate something that they have reality with, So you've got to kind of listen to them and get in communication with them and find out what their interests are, and then do things that relate to your life too, but also theirs, so they'll buy it from you.
Yeah, you know what? Then so you're actually changing their lives because you're probably bringing something, a dream of theirs or an illusion of theirs. You bring it to life, and they can put it in their house. And it leads me to the question I was going to ask you, because I see that you're doing with us all these kids and those great pictures. And Buddha, if you can put one of those pictures up again of those three kids, because it's a great, I love that picture of them there where they're painting and their faces are all smiling there. There it is. And that little boy, it's amazing. So what I was going to ask you, tell us a little bit about your purpose and your goal for those kids that I see on the screen when you get them to collaborate on this artistic creation of theirs.
Well, I guess it's pretty simple, really. It really expands. They get really blown away by the experience, of creating a piece of artwork right in front of them, that is their idea, and it comes to life. So you're like, okay. Also, what they're doing there is they're actually doing some part of the drawing. I have them look at the drawing and be something in the drawing, and then I take the picture. I go, you can pick what you want to be in that, and then do that, and I'll take your picture. So I do that whenever I draw them. Which, if you look at the pictures newly, you can see that's what they're doing. They're being those different characters, which is kind of fun, and it just blows them away.
Okay.
And anybody who's watching.
I was wondering what that was. I was looking and I said, well, what?
There's
so
a unicorn.
They're being the unicorns in the pictures.
Right.
I have to have you draw one for me as a dentist, and like I don't know, with my mask off or something, and I going like, and something interesting, because, but you're really right that when you can actually communicate something that people like, it really changes them. Because I find the same thing in my practice when I help them and they get something that turns out to be different than what they thought in a pleasant way, like what you're doing. It really gives them a different point of view, and it relaxes them on something that maybe they had tension about. I'm curious, because you've gone all over the country. So tell us a little bit about the different shows that you've done during the course of your career.
Well, I've done some of the biggest shows in the country, actually. There's one down in Miami. It's called Coconut Grove Show, and it's huge. And it has different parts, and the part I was in the St. Stephen's Church area. And I did that for years. And in fact, I kind of also create things besides artwork, like my step band. Well, I built a trailer one time that was actually my display, and it was I built it from the ground up. I mean, I didn't do all the work on it. I had a guy weld the frame and all that stuff. But what it was a design I came up with while driving down the highway for a display that could just open up, and my display would be open with all my work on the wall and everything set up, And I actually had that at the St. Stephen's show. And the promoter came up and said, what is this? You didn't say you were going to bring this thing to the show, But she let me set it up and let me do the show. And then after the show was over, about 2 weeks later, I saw she came through another show, the same promoter. And she said, you're not going to believe what happened. There was a guy that came up and he took pictures and did a write-up in a national magazine of this display that I had built. And it was in the, what was that called? I can't think of the name of the magazine now. It's Sunshine Artist. And anyhow, her thing for her show, the big write-up of her show was like in one section, and this thing with this, I called it a displayler, was right across from hers and had a couple more pages there. So it was just like, she's like, I can't believe this happened, and I was going to throw you out of the show. So fortunately, she didn't.
Well, I guess you stretched her limits, huh?
Yeah, I kind of did.
Well, I think as an artist, that's probably the joy of artistry, no? Is like, seeing how we can change the environment or change what we think is just definitely set in stone, and then we go, oh, it can be something different. I mean, is that part of like what you try to do with your art?
Well, what I try to do in my art basically is make people laugh. You know, I enjoy creating that particular energy. When it happens, it really makes you feel good, and it makes other people feel good too. Like at an art show, I might have like people at one time, and they're all laughing and sharing. You know, showing that people will be looking at one and go, "Oh, look at this one! You know, look at that one." And it's hard to stay in a bad mood in an environment like that. Yeah.
Very, very true. You know, that at the beginning of the show, as I was introducing you, that's one of the things I realized before the show is that we have all this going on in our country, right, in the society, and it seems like we've lost our ability to laugh at things. What do you feel about that?
Well, I think people watch too much news and too little of other things that make them feel good. You know, to focus on that type of negative energy, it can't do anything but make you negative, you know? And so, yeah, if they went out, got out, looked around, noticed things, you know, go out to a park, go out to an art show, buy some artwork.
Support your local artist, right?
That's right. Yeah, I think so.
Well, you know, one of the things that I find is after a long day at the office, sometimes, you know, I'm really a little bit overrun on so much that happens during the day because I deal in a very stressful field of gum surgery, dental implants. But then it's interesting. I try to do something. I go outside my office. There's a lawn and some trees. And so I'll try to go out there, and sometimes I take my shoes off so I can feel the grass. And it's totally different, you know, and it's amazing in the difference in feeling. You know, but it's amazing how fast the show has gone by. I want to ask you, because we're at the end of the show, what final comment would you like to leave all our viewers about what you think is going to be important in 2023?
Well, kind of like what we were just talking about. I think it's important to put your attention on positive things and do what you can to help other people, you know, in whatever way you can. I mean, I was driving over to Ann Arbor, and we stopped by to visit a friend, and this lady came out and her tire was flat on her car. And I went over there and said, "Hey, your tire's flat." You know, she goes, "Well, I think I can make it." And I said, "You won't make it, and your rim will be destroyed if you drive it like that, you know." So I said, "Let me change that tire for you." So I did. I changed the tire, and she tried to pay me. And I said, "I'm sorry, but I can't take your money. You have to do more than that. You have to help somebody some way that you can. You know, I mean, it doesn't have to be changing their tire, but, you know, you have some abilities, and something will come up where they could use a little help, and you'll remember this."
Well, you know, Steve Gill, on that note, I think, unfortunately, we have to end the show, but it's a tremendous way to end off. Thank you for taking this time all the way from Detroit.
No problem. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, it's been a great show. That's why the time flew by. So for those of you watching, let's do what Steve Gill says. Let's pay a little more attention to the positive things in our life. And that last thing he said, help somebody. And help them without looking to get something back, no recompense. But then tell them, you know what, you go and help someone else, and we'll change this country. So until the next time of the Time for Truth show, go help somebody, and we'll see you at the next episode. Have a good night.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard, you don't know where to go. everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet